As with so many of the stories of Jesus, the parable of the debtors arose out of a question that was posed to Jesus. Simon Peter said to him, "Master, if my brother sins against me, how many times should I forgive him? 7 times?" Even as he asked that question, my mind cannot help but think about children and how they will sometimes confess something they do wrong, expecting to get praise from a teacher or a parent because they were so honest. In the same sense, Simon Peter, by asking this question, is not expecting rebuke but praise. He is expecting Jesus to say, "Excellent, Peter, you go to the head of the class, you get A+. According to the Jewish law, Peter had the right to think that he had done something good. Scribal law clearly read, "If a man transgresses 1 time, forgive him. If a man transgresses 2 times, forgive him. If a man transgresses 3 times, forgive him. If a man transgresses 4 times, do not forgive him." What Peter has done is to take this law of limited forgiveness, multiply it by 2, and add 1, and then sit back with a smile on his face and say, "Now, how is that for being a great guy?" And he surely must have been taken aback when Jesus said, "You must forgive 70 times 7. Then Jesus proceeded to tell a story. There was a certain king who had a day of reckoning for his servants. He found one who owed him 10,000 talents. And because he could not pay, he was about to have him thrown into jail and his wife and children sold into slavery. In response to the man's pathetic pleadings, however, he forgave him the entire debt. Whereupon the forgiven servant went to a fellow servant who owed him 100 denarii, a very small sum of money, and demanded payment. He pleaded for extra time and extension, but the man would not hear of it, and he had him thrown into jail. The story got back to the king, who went into a rage. He called in the forgiven servant and said that because of his conduct, he was now to be thrown into jail. His original debt was reinstated. Now the question is, what was Jesus attempting to say to Simon Peter? Through this parable, Jesus says, "Peter, you can be forgiven, but forgiveness carries a heavy price. And a forgiven soul should be a forgiving soul." Let's look at the first. Jesus says, "Peter, you can be forgiven, but you are starting with the wrong question." Peter starts by asking, "Master, how many times must I forgive?" Jesus responds, "Peter, how many times have you been forgiven?" It is a stirring question, is it not? It is, of course, the proper place to start, and when our minds are properly oriented, we are more apt to approach personal injury with mercy and grace. The second thing Jesus would have Peter know is forgiveness carries a heavy price. The king owed 10,000 talents, we are told, which in today's currency is well over 100 crore rupees. The point is that it was a huge amount of money, quite beyond the reach of the servant to pay. The story is saying to us that forgiveness carries a large price tag. Have you ever thought that Jesus did not have to end the parable of the prodigal son the way that he did? We know that as the prodigal son comes home, the elder son is jealous and sulks. But what if instead of going to the prodigal son first, the father had gone to the elder son first? What if he had said something to him that went like this? "Look, your brother has come back, and frankly, I don't know what to make of it. He looks like death warmed over, and maybe there is a chance that he has finally come to his senses. So with your approval, I am going to take him back as a hired servant and give him a chance to prove himself." Now, We are not going to make a big deal out of this. We are going to play this low key and see just how much he has matured. As far as anybody else is concerned, he is just another servant. But I think that you will agree that this is the least that we can do for him. Keep an eye on him. Now, if that had happened, do you think that the elder brother would have been offended as he was in Jesus' true ending? No, of course not. I dare say he would have relished it. And it would have been a logical way of handling things. That is precisely the point. Forgiveness is not always logical. It is not pleasant. It comes with a price. The truth is that all too often the times we think that we have forgiven someone hasn't been real forgiveness at all. It may have been a condescending toleration or a quick dismissal or a cheap kind of pity. True forgiveness is not as easy as we like to think. Indeed, it goes to the core of our very being. It is perhaps the primary test of our spiritual maturity. In the story of the prodigal son, the prodigal is welcomed back not as a servant but as an equal. The elder son is not given any protection at all. What happened cut him deeply. Oh, we have our cliches. I'll forgive, but I won't forget. The elder son might have said something like that, but he would have gone on to add an addendum. Don't tell me it is my responsibility before God to forgive him, and don't tell me that my need for forgiveness is the same as his, because I know there is a difference. Let the record show that I am the forgiver and he is the forgiven. I have the moral high ground. I will forgive him as long as he understands that he is not really restored to full relationship with me. When the king forgives his servant the 100 crore debt, a debt that he cannot possibly repay, he is saying that he is restored to full relationships, no strings attached. Why would the estranged return if there were no world worth returning to? We only ask forgiveness when we think we will be forgiven. But there is a heavy price. In receiving forgiveness, there comes a great responsibility to forgive others. This is the first answer to Peter's question. Peter, Jesus says, forgiveness is unlimited. Do not try to impress God with limited mercy. The third point of this parable is found in the actions of the one forgiven. He goes out to a colleague and demands immediate payment of a paltry amount of money. Having been forgiven, he cannot now forgive. The king finds out about what has happened, and he again summons the servant before him. He had better be careful about how we handle this whole subject of forgiveness, because one day our life is going to be exposed. Jesus said in Luke chapter 12, what is veiled will be unveiled, what is hidden will be known. Nobody is going to get away with anything. You thought that it was just another fugitive who got caught and exposed. Friends, one day you are going to be caught and exposed. Every impure thought, every self-seeking act, every cruel word will come out. The whole point of the cross is to let us know that we all know so little about goodness and godliness that at one time or another we all play a role in this messy and deplorable condition called sin. Jesus said to Simon Peter, Peter, don't forgive 7 times, forgive 70 times 7. Now, I do not know of anyone who has sinned against me 490 times, but I have to be honest and tell you that during the span of my lifetime, I have sinned against God more than 490 times. Once we understand the depth of our own sin, then we will forever be motivated to get involved in the process of forgiveness. In Victor Hugo's novel, Lemosonic, Jean Valjean served a 19-year sentence for stealing a loaf of bread in order to feed his sister's family. Finally, he is set free. A bishop is the only one who will befriend the embittered man. Valjean rewards him by stealing some of his silver. He is caught red-handed by the police. The bishop, you will recall, is called to a police station to prefer charges. Instead of doing that, he brings Valjean his silver candlestick holders in an effort to fool the police into thinking that Valjean had not stolen. Valjean is forever changed. He extends grace to an orphan child and raises her as his own. He forgives the policeman who wanted to put him back in jail. Finally, he dies holding in his hands the 2 candlesticks that the bishop gave. What is it that so completely changed this embittered man? He learned to extend mercy because mercy had been extended to him. Friends, every time we enter this sanctuary, we have a symbol of the forgiveness that has been extended to us. It is the cross. Accept the grace that is offered to you, and then, in the name of that one who has forgiven you a debt which you cannot possibly repay, extend grace to others.